Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for being on. You are Sarah Garrettson.
Yes, I am.
And
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. And you are a script supervisor.
That is correct.
Very exciting because I also script supervise. And I haven't had the chance to nerd out with anybody, so fair warning for people, it might get nerdy.
I'm honored that I get to be that fellow nerd.
Yeah. So I want to talk about you.
What do you want to know?
I don't know. I like talk. Let's kind of start with talking about the craft, about the position, about what we deal with on set, about how we think others think of us, how we're actually seen, and then we'll jump into a little bit about how you got started and what other stuff you're exploring as well.
Okay.
So that's kind of the course load we're going to tackle.
Sounds good.
Okay, so what is script supervising for those at home that are not familiar? When people ask you what you do, how do you describe it?
I find it personally very hard to summarize all the things that we do. I try to explain script supervising as the craft. The script supervisor is the person who is the link between the written script, the director, and the director's vision to then lead into the editorial. So we're kind of that red line between the different stages of production in script perspective. So we keep continuity in order for the editor to have all the footage in a way that they can put together. And we also help make sure that we get everything while keeping track of all the different aspects of filmmaking in regards to continuity, whether it be hair, makeup, costume, lighting in a way, props. We help the actors with dialogue, performance, and making sure that, the meaning of things doesn't get altered too much in a way that the director doesn't like or the editor won't be able to put together. I don't know. But as a summarizing factor, like a summary of our job.
I think that was the summary of the job, technically. It's
cool.
hard to really say it in one breath. It takes a few.
But it worked.
I mean, I know what you're talking about.
Perfect. I hope you do too.
It's a very tricky position, and I guess one thing that I was hoping to do was shine some light on what we actually do, because I always joke, and I told you this over the phone too, how I joke about how nobody on set really knows what we're doing. People, depending on where they are in the production, they have an idea of what we do, but it's all like pieces of what we do because there's so much we do.
But then, isn't that with every department?
No.
No?
Maybe.
See, I look at sound mixers and I'm like, all right, I see what you're doing. You're twisting and turning and boom, perfect sound.
But it's so much more.
But there's so much more
for sure
behind it, or the prep of camera. I've never done that. I don't know what exactly it takes to be a cinematographer in the prep and all of that.
So true.
So for me, who only has set experience with script supervision, a lot of people come to me and say that, and I feel that way because nobody really knows what we do on set. It's like, oh yeah, script supervisor, you make sure the hair's up, right? Or down, depending on.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes.
A lot of
that's one of the things that we do, but it's not all of it.
Do you also hear, because I hear this sometimes, where people kind of, I don't know, there's always classic talking points when you're on crew, when you're talking to people, and they're like, oh my gosh, script supervisor is like the most important job on set, and they'll try to talk to you and make you feel good about what you're doing, let you know that you're appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm thinking like, well, yes, it's true. It's true. We are the most important position.
Absolutely.
But then I still kind of get the feeling of like, well, they are missing it. They're not seeing the full picture still. But I guess I like your point with like sound mixers and stuff.
Yeah.
However, maybe it's because I've dabbled into other aspects too, where I'm like, okay, I know what the DP is doing. I know that they're trying to figure out what the shot's going to be and what the camera move's going to be and what the lighting is going to be on it. I can't make those decisions myself, but at least I know what they're doing.
Right.
And we understand how much time it's going to take. And it's kind of like in everybody's view, like we all know what's going on and because we get to see it. We're looking at the frame. Mm-hmm. We know they made decisions. We don't know what decisions they went. We don't know how they came to it or all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But we can see the work. With script supervising, there's stuff that we're doing that we don't turn in on any sheets. We don't really tell anybody else about. We're thinking about stuff. Like examples, I don't know, like eye lines or the 180 roll. Like we're kind of keeping stuff in the back of our mind.
Yeah.
That
I love the reading between the line and keeping unscripted continuity. Those are things that a lot of people don't realize. It's the carryover continuity. Where it's like you see a scene and that doesn't say that there needs to be a work bag, but she's going to work. So you think, all right, what's between the lines? What does a normal human actually have? And, that's one of the prep things that I love doing is just kind of making sure that it's not only the scripted stuff, but, for example, I read a script and she runs out the door, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, all right, we're going to have to make sure that she has her mask because it's all about a COVID story. And in the time of COVID, so it's like she can't just frantically run out without something that she'll be needing when she's outside. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, those are thoughts that most people don't really have if they're not script supervisor or director, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of that, I don't know, that's a tough part too, where you have the script and we're there respecting the script, making sure it's being honored and followed through and all that stuff, but sometimes the script doesn't include the stuff that we have to actually keep track of too. Like, I get tripped up on that stuff sometimes as well, where I'm like, all right, like before we're shooting a scene, I'll go through and make sure, okay, it mentions there's an umbrella, it mentions this, let me just like keep an eye out. All right, sweet, okay, she's wearing her watch, cool. But then I sometimes forget about the stuff that's not mentioned. It's like, oh, she put on her wedding ring in the last scene, she should have it on here, it's not mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Or like, she took it off because they broke up, or whatever the story calls for. Mm-hmm. And those are things that I really like to play with in prep. Like, because you really have to do it in prep, otherwise you're never gonna catch it. Because on the day, in my opinion, like in my experience, there's so much going on the day. If you haven't made a note that this scene needs the wedding ring, you're not gonna. It's hard to keep track of everything.
It's true.
But so script supervising has a lot of those little things, which can be huge.
Yes. So I guess for clarification as well, you and I are both script supervisors in the non-union world.
True.
Just for clarity on anybody listening, we're not talking, I don't know, about.
No, that is a big difference because I'm sure that I have no union experience, obviously, but as far as I heard and know, there's a different workflow and there's a little bit more time because you're not necessarily trying to cram 12 pages in one day, which I'm sure you've had those days on non-union shoots as well. Yeah. But also each department, has more experience in their own, so you don't have to, not that I'm babysitting, but you don't have to pay as much attention to catching potential mistakes from other departments.
Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like as script supervisor, we're kind of a hub. It's like every department has their own focus, their own breakdown, their own continuity to focus on. And then the script supervisor is the person who needs to keep continuity for all of them and make sure that we have everything.
Yep. How do you handle, okay, let's talk about pre-production maybe a little bit. So getting prepped for a show, a shoot.
What kind of shoot? What kind of project?
Let's just say...
Because it varies. For me, it varies if I'm working on a virtual reality show or a motion capture thing or a feature film or a short versus a commercial.
Yeah, let's just say feature.
Okay.
It's a 15-day feature.
Okay.
And you get the call, and you, what questions do you ask of production before you take a gig? Let's start with that. Do you have...
Not enough.
Okay. We all experiment with that, I'm
right.
sure.
Well, if they haven't already mentioned the rate, I ask what the rate is.
It's a good start.
What kind of shoot it is, if it's day shoots or night shoots or splits or, a little bit of both. Just kind of getting a scope of what my next 2 weeks are going to look like, or 3, if it's 5. It's another question. Is it 5-day weeks, or are you planning to squeeze in a 6th here, making sure that if it is a 6th day, that we get paid and that's in the contract for overtime. I ask how many cameras we're shooting with, because that has an impact on our note taking and our focus level on the day. I sometimes, but not very often, ask who the director is. It's because it's non-union, and most of the times if I haven't heard of it from the director, I probably don't know the director. So I like to ask who the director is to get a sense of it, but it's not a deal breaker.
Yeah.
It's like, and then shooting location, like if it's in LA or elsewhere. But they usually include a lot of that information in their initial contact as well.
As far as the camera thing, I think I was talking to somebody recently about cameras and the number of cameras and impacting the job. My experience in the non-union world is, okay, in the union world, you get paid more depending on, if there's another camera, it's a camera bump, and then third camera, another camera bump. You get paid more based on the cameras.
That should be the same for non-union.
In non-union, I have never gotten a camera bump.
All right, well, you need to ask for it. I do not generally accept no camera bump, because the camera bump is for the additional notes. If you don't want the notes, I won't take the notes. But if you're giving them notes for the second camera without asking for reimbursement for that time and work, because it is a whole second set of attention and eyes and note taking for multiple different forms. So you're allowing them to have you do more work without paying you for that extra work. Now, you can be flexible on non-union jobs in regards to what you charge them for your kit. Sometimes I get told, well, for the camera bump.
Yeah, kit's a whole different thing.
Kit's a whole different thing. But on non-union stuff, sometimes I will allow them to kind of merge the kit fee with the camera bump in order to kind of make them
work with
what they have. And it's like, I know that not every film has the same budget, and I'm willing to work with budgets, but I don't like to work for free.
No, for sure. Well, you're still getting, all right, regardless.
No, I understand.
I understand. I understand that.
And on
for
non-union jobs, I feel like a lot of non-union producers have to try and squeeze, like not squeeze, but like find the money where it is. And so again, I'm more than happy to work with low budget projects, but there needs to be the understanding that if you're asking me to do a job, you need to have some kind of form of reimbursing for that extra work.
Yeah.
Or because it also takes extra equipment to have 2-camera like feed for me. Like it's
more cords.
It's more cords. It's another device. It's part of my setup that I've invested in, and you know.
Yeah. Have you had the experience where? Okay, and that's sticking with the camera thing. I'm very curious.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned, okay, there's a second camera, great, X amount for the bump, and they say, actually, we don't have that in the budget. You're like, okay, I'm just giving A camera notes then. So you say yes to the project, but you only give notes on A camera?
Well, I ask them.
Yeah.
Usually, if you can afford a whole second team and a whole second camera setup, $25-$40 for a camera bump per day is not going to kill your production. It's really not that much if you look at, the grand scheme of what it costs to have a second camera.
Yeah.
And the notes do help in the edit, and it's
100%.
necessary.
It's
so
very necessary.
It's like, if you're willing to work with their budget and say, all right, instead of the typical $40 camera bump, I'm going to give it to you for half, for $20 or $25, right? And if they say, oh, we really don't have that in the budget, it's like, okay, so you don't want notes for your second camera. And they're like, no, we need the notes. I'm like, all right, well, so you're asking, but I think what you're asking is, would you walk away? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm more. I like the idea of. It's kind of like a weird thing, but saying yes to the project, and then sticking with your guns and only giving notes on A camera.
I have done that.
Okay, yeah.
I have done that. I have done that for projects that sprung CD and E cameras on me.
Right.
On a non-union, low-budget, 10-episode web series where they're like, oh, we're just going to add cameras on these next 5 days. I'm like, okay, well, do you expect notes for those cameras? And then, try and talk to them, and they were like, no, we definitely don't have any additional money. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to stick to A and B camera as initially agreed upon. You know?
It's good to know. It's good to know.
And yeah, it depends on the project. I do take note that I make a note for the editor saying there are additional cameras.
Yeah, just...
it's like, try and find, like, on these days we had 3 cameras, or on these days we had 5 cameras. For these shots we had X amount of cameras. Production only wants notes for A and B. Or whatever it is that you've discussed with production. Or, I have also, on some projects, if there was time, I would make note of, like, what the general setup is or what it was for. So one of those cameras was a specific camera that the visual effects team brought in because they wanted an extra shot. So I was like, okay, this is the VFX camera. Like, they want this for that. But I don't take notes for each take or when they're rolling or how much time we did or whether it was good or not. I don't do the detailed notes that, takes up so much of our beautiful typing skill and thought.
So when people are watching us on set, they usually see some sort of note, stuff going on. I wanted to talk about, okay. What is in the notes? What are we typing? What's going on there? What is... you work with what program?
I have transitioned. So I started working and learned on pencil paper, which I suggest for every script supervisor starting out, because in my opinion, it's a crucial thing to be able to fall back on. You know, with the digital world, that's great. I love working digital now. But if you're at 110 degrees or really cold weather and your battery dies on you and there's just absolutely no way that you can charge because you're in a pool setup or whatever it may be, having the ability to just say, no problem, I'm just going to do everything in paper form and then scan it and send it off. Or if you really feel generous, you know,
redo the work in an Excel sheet later or something.
Right, yeah. Or however you want to do it. Knowing the basics and being able to do that on pencil paper is huge, in my opinion. I have transitioned to work digitally, and I love Peter Garrett's forms. So I tried Script-E. Script-E is a very powerful system, but it doesn't quite work with my brain. Like, my workflow is different than Script-E is set up. But Peter Garrett's forms are just perfect for me. They very much reflect how I learned pencil paper versions and those forms. So that's a system that I use.
Yeah. I
use it on a MacBook. And then I have image capture that I can grab feed from the monitor or directly to camera if there's no monitor in specific setups, and then get feed straight into my computer and have screenshots and like keep continuity there, which I love because I don't have to fight over the main monitor, and directors love it because they can have their own little monitor without the script supervisor hovering. It's like, but I need to see what's happening. So that's my setup. And then in regards to the notes that everyone sees us typing and like always,
because sometimes people get very curious. They try to lean over your shoulder and like ask questions, or just because it's so mysterious, you know.
It is, yeah. And I think that's the thing about our job is, you know, as we talked about earlier, you see even if I don't necessarily understand why or how they're shaping the light, but you see that they're actively shaping the light, the G&E teams, and then the cinematographer and the camera team is setting up the camera angles, and you see it makes sense. And what you see for us is involved in the script. It's like we are deeply, like, we dive into the script, whether it's on the computer or in a binder, and we talk to the people we need to talk to, but it's a lot of the time we're just really focused on our notes.
Okay.
And then sorry, I'm getting around to your question regarding the notes that we actually do. So as script supervisor, I have this progress report for production, which includes the shoot day that we're on, what the call time was, when we actually got the first shot in, which they then compare to what the AD estimated, like what was the called for first shot versus the actual first shot. When did we call lunch, which is important for meal penalties and, you know, abiding by California labor laws. And then when did we get the first shot after lunch? When did we actually wrap? Did sound wrap earlier than camera? You know, so I like to have, if sound does not wrap at the same time as camera, I put those separately. And I always add the script supervisor wrap out time as well. And then, what else is on the do you want like details of the progress report?
No, we don't have to get too specific on it. I guess the point of the progress, that's a form that's designed at the end of the day. I guess you're accumulating data for it throughout the day.
Yeah, so you kind of want to keep track
Yeah.
throughout the day so that it doesn't pile up. And then it's basically there to inform production on what scenes have we worked on, what have we completed, how many pages have we completed, and what's the estimated running time. So how long did each of these scenes actually take in respect to the actual screen time that we're accumulating. So this is especially important for shows that have a 30-minute or like a specific running time. Commercials, very important. Even features, like if you want to get a 1.5-hour movie, but on day 5 you already have 45 minutes. You're like,
So this is going to run long.
Right. So
and producers might not be happy with that, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I love data. So getting to review, I could imagine on the production side, it's a great gauge for how you're doing and how many setups you're averaging in a day.
Exactly.
You can kind of gauge why certain days are falling behind or what's going on there, and they could, I guess they could assess that. I don't quite.
No,
I've never really been on that end to see what they do with the numbers.
Right.
But I could imagine.
Well, that's the purpose of it. Like that's the goal, to help production keep an eye on how are we actually doing each day, and what else needs to be done. If we were scheduling to get something done but we actually didn't get it, that's crucial for production to know, because then we're going to have to schedule that at a different time.
Yeah.
We have to get the cast back, potentially the location, whatever production deals with on that end.
Yeah, that's the AD.
That's the AD.
They have to solve that problem.
They have to solve it, but production has to put up the money and work with them.
It's a team effort.
So that's the first report. That's the first set of notes. Then you have the script notes. The script notes and edit log, to me, are very similar, but for different purposes. So the script notes have detailed information about each take per scene. So we give the scene a name, like at every shot gets its own little name so that the editors can find it. We put information about, minimal information about camera info. What camera card is it on, or reel? What sound files can they find this on? What lens did we use? Which I feel like cinematographers ask for more than I think the editors need these days.
Yeah.
So the cinematographer will come up to me and go, "Hey, do you remember what lens I had for that, close-up that we did 5 days ago, and now we need to do the other one to just match it?" So there are script supervisors who no longer put that information in their notes because it's in the metadata, and
sometimes it can matter, and then you'll notate if it matters or whatever. I don't know.
I just like to have it because it has helped.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. It's not a big deal to put down what lens it is.
Sure. So I was gonna.
And then that has like detailed information about what the director liked, what the differences are between the takes, so that the editors have a clear guideline of trying to
save them time.
Save them time, piece together or focus on the good parts first. Most editors look through everything anyway, but it definitely saves them time in specifying when the director says, "Hey, there was a take where I really liked his laugh," right?
Sure.
And on the day the director really chuckled or gave me a thumbs up or said, "That one." So I make a note.
Yeah.
And I say, "Liked the laugh." And the edit, they'll be like, "Oh, this one. That's it. Let's look here first."
Yeah, and then I always think about, because of course the notes could be used in I was trying to use a big word, a myriad of ways.
Love it.
I like to think about, because directors have so much going on the day, that I imagine it's easy to forget what you liked, why you liked it.
Absolutely.
Even that you reacted in any way to anything gets lost in the muddle of the whole production. So being able to sit with the editor and have those notes available, you can kind of peruse those as a director too, and be reminded of like, oh, okay. It jogs memories and helps them out.
Absolutely.
So.
That's why I love to use, if a director has a specific word on the day, I'll write that down.
Like what? Like perfect, or?
No, perfect is, you know.
Say that for everything.
But I had a director who, let me think of an example. Okay, so recently, a director had different specific directions for the talent. It's like, I want mysterious, or I want this one to be easier, like lighter, or, you know, give me a chuckle, or whatever it is, and then I'll say with chuckle, or easier, or, you know, just to emphasize the specific intention of a take. Obviously, you can't always get that, because a lot of directors, you know, whisper those into the talent's ears on set. But this one was nice because I heard it, and I was, and you know, a lot of times you're there with the director and you hear it or you notice.
No, for sure.
Or even if you don't hear the direction, it's like trying to emphasize what the difference was. Is a crucial part of our notes. Like, if you just say this was good, this was also good, and this was also good, in the edit they're gonna say, great, we have 3 good takes. Yeah, but which one had the chuckle? Says good. So
So we're not. That's technically not doing your job of assisting on the edit side. It's you're saving the time of they don't have to watch the first 2 takes potentially, but it's could do better than that.
Right. So personally, I like to put as much detail in my notes as possible. So that's the body of both script notes as well as edit logs. But then the script notes are sorted per scene, and the edit log is sorted per camera data. So what order did we shoot this in? You know, what day, what camera reel, what, you know, if the editor gets the footage, it's like, all right, I got this one first, what is it? And then instead of sorting per scene, it's per camera, and for like camera order, or how shooting order. Right,
because we don't often shoot in sequence order of the script, so it's all over the place.
Exactly.
And depending on how you want it ordered, you can rise to that occasion.
Exactly.
What I was going to mention too was, you mentioned it's a part of the job to give a name to each setup, and that's a part of the job that people do see.
It is,
because it goes on the slate.
And call it out.
And the second assistant camera comes over and asks what we're going to call it, and then you relay it as well to sound, so we're all on the same page with what matches on the slate on front of the camera to what the sound person's hearing, to what we're notating on.
And if you have VTR and DIT on set, they need to know it as well.
They'll see it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well. Exactly. So, and then oftentimes the second AD, the second AD or the second will come and ask, because they like to keep track of that as well. Although I don't know why.
Do they?
But You've had
that happen?
Yeah. I've had that happen. It's like, hey, are we still on this? Are we still on that? How many setups? What is this? Because they lost track of it, or whatever. Had to step off set.
They just want to know where we're at in the day. Early progress check-in.
Exactly.
That's what it sounds like.
Exactly.
Okay, so how...
And then you line the script.
Well, we'll get to that.
Oh, okay. That's the fourth
That's
note.
a weird part. I was going to ask about the scene number. I was curious how how do you do it in terms of how often is it when others try to influence what you're putting on the scene, or how do you establish how this is going to go? Because there's traditional ways of doing it, but sometimes different shows want things certain ways. Editors, it might be useful to put it a certain way. How do you handle all that?
Communication.
That's the whole job.
No, pre-production communication.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a feature or a web series, or I recently did a podcast, and they had a very specific way that they like to call their shots. If it doesn't hurt you, like, I like to play, like, I like to work with them. It's like, all right, for episodics, I suggest, so I've worked on episodics on multiple seasons. So, in that case, the first time it was a little bit of a mess. And then after, I was like, all right, can we label the scenes to include the episode as well as the scene number on the slate?
Yeah.
So if it's episode 2, scene 5, I call it 205 on the slate.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's episode 10, whatever, I call it 1005. So 1005 on the slate, or whatever it is. Some people like hyphens through it or dots, but I like to have that on the slate, because scene 5, if we're doing multiple, if we're cross-boarding, and I have, multiple episodes with scene 5 on one day or across, I was like, so this is scene 5, and this is scene 5, and this is scene 5, and
it gets confusing really quick.
Very quick.
And cross-boarding is, just to clarify that.
Yes, cross-boarding is when you work on an episodic, for example, and you have multiple episodes to shoot, and then on the day of shooting, you don't only focus on shooting one episode, but you shoot all the classroom scenes across the board. So you're cross-boarding the classroom scene in episode 1, the classroom scene in episode 2, the classroom scene because you usually have the same cast on the day, the same location, and on non-union stuff you do that a lot. A lot more than what I've learned in regards to union stuff. Yeah,
where they...
In the union world, you might be cross-boarding 1 or 2 episodes, but they like it, from what I've heard, they like to...
Rumor has it
that it's not as much of a thing to cross-board 10 episodes. Which for us can get really tricky because of resets, and it's like, well, in this episode all of these things happened, and the costume is different, and the hair is different, and it's a different story day, and but we had a wound inflicted in episode 8, so in episode 10 there has to be a wound so crossboarding is a fun game for script supervisors.
And then as far as noise, just FYI, we are on the roof of my apartment, so there might be sounds you hear, just so you know.
We are not alone anymore.
All right. Okay. How
do you do it? You're a script supervisor.
It's the same thing.
Like, how do you slate?
I was going to ask, okay. It's the same thing.
Oh no.
We'll see how this goes. But okay. What I wanted to jump into is there's times when, very often in non-union, I feel like, where I'm jumping in like mid show, or like the last 3 days of a feature, or filling in for a day, and you have to kind of carry the baton of what the other one's already established. or again, they could get hired the day before. You haven't really had a chance to really figure out who people are, what's going on. You show up the next day and you're like, all right, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Establish my dominance early. I feel like there's always a moment. I was joking with a director about it that I script supervised for. I'm like, there's always a moment, like on the first day of production, where you have to like, well, it feels like I have to do it. I don't know if it's a common thing where I have to kind of like prove that I know what I'm talking about, or kind of, because people will often assume what's going on the slate, or the director and the DP have worked together before and they're expecting it to be this, and I'm like, no, actually this is what I'm going to call it, or kind of just figure.
Now, is this on a first day of production where you are there on day one? I would say 100%. If you're jumping in and there's already an established system, I don't like to stand my ground in terms of labeling, because if my labels don't match what they've been shooting the last, like the footage and all the labels that editorial already has put together for the last 10 days, and this is just the last 2 days of the shoot or whatever it may be, whenever you jump in, I like to make it as easy for them as possible, because otherwise it's going to get messy and confusing, and my notes are going to be more of a hassle than a help. And I try to avoid that. I try to be as helpful, like with my notes, because to me, the main reason why you hire a script supervisor is to avoid mistakes that sneak into the the editorial, but also to save money in the edit with the notes. And if the editor constantly has to call the script supervisor and be like, I don't understand what you said here, where can I find that footage? It doesn't help. It makes life harder. And one union script supervisor who I talked to, or I heard her speak in a class, and it was like, you can call it whatever you want. You can call a scene rock 1, rock 2, bananas. It doesn't matter, as long as it's consistent and you have in your notes what it is. So even if it's not my style of labeling things, and I think that doesn't make a lot of sense, if that's how a project has commenced and is like already in that, like if they're already doing it that way, then why change the wheel?
No, for sure.
If it's worked for them, I try to just kind of work with it.
I know. Okay, definitely. I was thinking of a specific show. I think it was only like 5 days or something, and they were really struggling to get in a script supervisor, and I couldn't come in till day 3, so they had like, I don't know what they did. I think the person before me that was waiting, they had a person day 1, they didn't have a person day 2, I had to get COVID tested, and then day 3 I came in. So day 2 they had basically a PA do the best they could. So there wasn't really like a nice established rhythm to it. So when I came in, it was basically a first day where it's like, all right, I'm here for the rest of the show, 3 out of the 5 days. I'm basically your day 1.
Fair.
So it was a similar vibe to a first day where.
Yeah, I mean, if the first and second day have varying styles, then I totally agree and say, do what is gonna be easiest for production. So if that is having a clear system for the remaining 3 days, saying, hey, this is my work. I don't know what they did, but this is how I work. The editors are gonna see your notes and say, hey, Eddie knows what he's doing. Like, I like this guy. Can we hire him again? You know, so in that case, I absolutely agree. I would stand my ground and say, hey, I understand, but I'm going to call it this way because.
Yeah, so how often do you feel like you're having to, I wouldn't say like wrestle, but communicate in an effective way to not, there's specific things that I always think about where DPs can often come up from, the weird thing about script supervising is you're only on shows that are big enough to require a script supervisor. Now, for camera, they could be on shows as small as camera and talent or
Absolutely.
whatever. So they often are very good about stuff like eye lines and 180 rule. Like that's kind of stuff baked into their methods because they've had to do it. Depending, it's a thing that they've had to worry about because they don't have somebody backing them up, so they want to do it right. At least the good ones.
Yeah.
So
I've had a lot of struggles with 180-degree lines and cinematographers.
It's tricky.
It is very tricky. And you really have to know your stuff because there are ultimately, with the 180-degree line, they tend to only ask you in really tricky situations.
Yeah.
So
which is fine.
No, that's exactly
beautiful.
the point. That's beautiful. That's how it should be. But then if they have a different opinion, it's like, hey, I'm asking you so that you can back me up, but I'm not really sure. And you say, I don't think you're right. That's what's like, well, of course I'm right. And then you have to really know why you think they're like, and be able to verbalize and explain it.
Yeah. I like to draw pictures.
I like to draw pictures too, or show screenshots.
Screenshots are helpful.
Screenshots are great.
They are. It still gets confusing. Even it's a tough thing to communicate. But I am curious. I don't know. I guess it's like any other communication on set where you're just doing the best you can to be collaborative and not offend and
absolutely
and all that kind of stuff. But it does get tricky sometimes with. It's going because I mean that's a part of the job is we only speak up almost like when stuff is either missed or went wrong or
if we see a potential problem in the edit.
Yeah.
that like whatever factor that may be, I only speak up when I really think that this might cause the editor to have an issue cutting together your movie in a way that's not jarring. So if the director and cinematographer love jumping the 180-degree line, which I've had, every time I brought it up, the director says, I like it. I'm like, oh, okay.
I like it.
You know? And if the cinematographer and I do not agree, and I've made my case and I've tried to explain, I back off.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's his picture more than it is mine in a way. Or hers. Yes. I've only worked with one female cinematographer. Lots of female camera crew, but only one female cinematographer. Yeah.
Interesting. I've worked with quite a few.
Yeah. So for me, it's still, we're working on it.
Yeah.
Yes, cinematographers can be both female and male. Thank you. But ultimately, it is.
I guess
it's my job, and I will speak up when I feel like I can help. But if the director or cinematographer do not want to adjust, then that's fine. It's like, cool.
Like I said my thing.
You make a note, you say, great. The director loves the fact that this happened, or loves that ad lib, or loves this, even though, and you just make a non-judgmental note for the editor saying, hey, I did catch this. It was brought up, and they liked it. You're good to go. So with eye lines, I've had that a couple times.
Yeah. For sure.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that was good. I'm trying to figure out. I wanted to. Okay. Basic. This is kind of moving back a little bit, but you mentioned paper, paper and pencil. We are in the year 2021. Especially right now, specifically, everybody wants to go full digital on set because they're worried about people touching each other's stuff, touching faces, whatever the case may be.
Yep.
But even before that, there's the stigma against pen and paper that was kind of like frowned upon from other people on production, or even within the community of script supervisors.
Interesting.
Is that an observation that you've?
I see what you're saying, and I've definitely come across it. I feel like a lot of producers.
What could we say to make the folk realize that, you know, whether you're on Peter Scarrett or
Scripty
paper
or...
scripty, the job is the same.
Exactly. I've learned to speak up about that. I had a producer saying that they required the script supervisor to be on Script E, so I purchased Script E, only to then not get the job for other reasons. And ultimately, it shouldn't matter what platform you use or what program you use or what media, I guess, is the correct term. As long as you are attentive on set, catch potential mistakes so that you can fix them on the day versus having to deal with them and cut around in post. Being communicative with your director, helping them out while keeping track of what we're doing so that you have that roadmap for both production during the shoot as well as editorial after. It shouldn't matter what you use. It really shouldn't, because it's about the quality of your notes. And I've had editors tell me, oh, but we don't like paper because it's so much easier to do the search factor on, typed computer stuff. All right. That's the only actual statement that makes sense to me. Because I've had producers say, oh, we need it to be digital. Cool. I'll scan it and send it to you when it's digital. I'm not going to hand you my pages.
Right.
Like, it's not the same as it used to be where you had to send the actual book. So it really shouldn't matter. They'll have it digitally. They don't have to store a full binder, in their archives. They can have that digitally. But if you're comfortable writing pencil and paper, and that's how you are fast and efficient, and that's how you like to work, then it shouldn't affect whether or not you get the job. Because it shouldn't be about that.
Yeah. So you keep using the word shouldn't. But is there a reality that's different than that? Or there's been certain shows. I'll just say the thing really quick.
No, yeah.
I was on a production, and I could only be on for the first week. And then I had a replacement lined up for week 2 from the beginning, and that person was pen and paper. I used Scripty, and they ended up not going with my person because they were pen and paper per that thing. And I tried to explain to them, even in person too. I was like, hey, by the way, this is pen and paper. It doesn't matter. She's great. And then they didn't go that route.
Do you know if they went with someone who also uses Scripty or just different digital?
I'm not sure on who they ended up going with.
Because, again, if you've already started one way, it can it just looks nicer and it's an easier flow. It's an easier way for the editors to merge things together if it's the same style, even if it's just the same formats. So I don't like that they did that. I really don't.
Yeah.
I have come across the fact that a lot of producers, because they don't really, not every producer looks at the edit log or your notes other than the progress report. If they even look at the progress report, because they have production assistants or, office PAs or whoever seconds to look at those.
Yeah.
So it has definitely become a thing for producers to be like, no, we need it to be digital in order for it to be good. Or, again, I have a lot of producers who have heard Script D so much. It's like, we need it to be Script D. Are you on Script D? I'm like, no, I'm not. But my notes are phenomenal. And I have gotten multiple comments, post-production, emails from the editors, sending praise emails to the producer saying, who's this? Is this a magician? These notes are great.
I gotta see these notes.
They're pretty good. Rumor has it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I mean, I can only compare to
sure.
but getting emails like that is definitely a huge praise. If the editors praise your work and reach out to the executive producer to be like, hey, this person did a great job. Those are like highlight moments.
Oh yeah, congrats.
Thanks.
That's great.
But so when producers come to me and say we need it to be this, I'm like, but do you though? Or do you need a quality script supervisor? I don't know. I don't know what exactly the situation was for you in that. I'm really sorry for the person who lost the job just because they didn't use the right system. But I personally don't think that it's more important what your job, like what your work is.
Yeah, because I've even thought about, I was like, if I ever had the opportunity to work for the same group of people again, I would be like, all right, but actually I'm using pen and paper this time, just to show you how great it is.
Yeah.
Because
here's the other thing. It's like, what if I've had a job where I was hired.
Sure.
And I was digital when I was hired, and then my computer broke on set or like after set, so it wasn't their responsibility, but I was no longer able to work digitally without having my computer fixed, and my computer needed 10 days to get fixed. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, the rest of the job is gonna have to be pencil paper because I didn't have, the means to set up a whole new loan computer or whatever. If you have that time, great.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're gonna have to work with what you have. And pencil paper, is quality work. I don't know what to say.
It's all the same information.
Yeah.
It's presented in a different way.
Yeah.
So, that being said.
Yeah, that being, I don't know. I think it's disappointing that the focus has shifted from how good are you at your craft to what style notes can we expect. It's disheartening because it just shows that a lot of people don't really know what we're doing and what the core of our job is, because it shouldn't be how pretty it is.
Even though yours are very pretty.
Mine are very detailed.
Okay.
There's a difference.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. I agree. Of course.
I have a question for you.
Oh, okay, go for it.
It's a change in topic, but it's I know that you have a lot of experience in other fields. Well, not other fields, but other departments.
Mm-hmm.
You've worked in camera, you write, you direct, you've produced your own stuff, and more. What made you merge into script supervision? What triggered that interest? I mean, like, hey, it's 2018. Let's right, you started in 2018, or when did you start?
I trained under Randy Feldman, same as you, in like January, February of 2018.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I took the workshop, went back to Reno, and then eventually moved later that year. But my story.
Why script supervisor?
Yeah, no, okay. I did a lot of my film school, air quotes, was making my own stuff in Reno. And I kind of learned aspects of film, trial and error, just making a bunch of stuff with the community and all that. And I would get my set experience by being, like, I worked my way to being a freelancer in that area.
Okay.
I didn't know what a script supervisor was for a long time.
Most people don't.
And I would PA on like productions that came up from LA to Lake Tahoe or whatever. I'd find my way on sets, learn some stuff by observing, go back to my stuff, implement it, blah blah blah. There was a feature that ended up landing there, I think like 2017, that winter, like a $7 million picture, indie, Sundance darling, and I ended up as the personal assistant to the director.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And that was cool. So I got to sit in on all the conversations and pre-production with AD, DP, director. That was her first feature, all that kind of stuff. And so with that being said, I spent a lot of time in Video Village being close to the director. And there's a person in there that I'm like, what's going on here? What is this? Who are you? What are you doing? Let me just peek over at your notes. You're clicking on your iPad. She was iPad scripty. And just like lines would pop up and things would pop up. She'd be clicking stuff. And I was just super confused as to what this was.
She was probably working fast too.
So I'm like, all right, you look chill. I like your personality. This is cool. I'd ask questions here or there, and eventually, because this was a winter in Carson City, which is, I don't know, you get seasons there. It's cold.
Where's Carson City?
It's half an hour out of Reno, which so northern Nevada. I don't know if that's helpful for you. Anyway.
Definitely. Nevada. Great.
It's desert.
No, I just,
Yeah.
don't really know Carson City.
It's all good.
Cool.
It's the capital of Nevada. We shot a capital city.
Of all cities. It's like, yeah.
But it's pretty small. It's not a... Anyway.
Okay.
We're on this prison. It's like it's old abandoned prison. We're using it for the movie. It's very cool.
Very cool.
She eventually got sick and had to take a weekend off. And we're in Carson City, Nevada. There's no script supervisors around to replace her. So she's like, have Eddie do it. He's been asking questions. He knows what's going on. And I'm like, sure. Because luckily I've had plenty of film experience in general, so I understood what was going on. I just didn't know the specifics of the job.
Yeah.
So she gave me a super quick rundown of, here's how scene numbers work. Here's what I want included in your notes. And
do you recall what she said? Like, what did she want in her notes? Like, what is the basic for?
I recall, man, that's a good question. I feel like it was the most basics of basics. It was scene number, description of the shot, and then what happened in that take. In whatever and then circle the good ones.
Did you take the timing as well?
I don't think I did. I think I did timing too. Yeah, timing was also a thing, because.
But none of the camera reports, like the camera information. Probably not.
I don't think so.
That's.
Yeah, and there was one moment on set where they actually asked a script supervisor question to me, and they're like, "Hey, which hand did he open this gate with?" Because I'm like, "Is that something I'm supposed to be looking for?" I'm so sorry, I don't know the answer. Like, I don't know. And then I think they just took their best guess. It was 50-50 chance, and went with it. But everybody stared at me for that moment, and I'm just like,
deer in a headlight.
I felt so bad. My one time to shine, I didn't have the answer. But regardless,
everyone's fear, isn't it? It's like you're working, and then nobody has questions. Like, you don't really have to bring anything up, and then all of a sudden it's like, Sarah, what was this? Or like, you're like,
you can kind of get lulled if you're not keeping yourself. Well, in this case, I didn't know.
Right.
I was even supposed to be watching for it, so I'm just like.
But even so, like, even if like you're not lulled, you're like really into it and busy, but you missed something. Like, I had such a panic about missing anything for the longest time. And then someone's like, okay, so you're human. Play back. Or, it's okay. What do you think you remember? Or whatever it is. It's like, it's okay to miss something. And that is something that I wish I had known. Of course, you kind of know it, but for someone to say, do your best, focus, like, look for these things, but if you don't have an answer, you're not going to get fired for not knowing one thing. Now, if you never know the answer,
that's another story. So what ended up happening was I would turn in my notes every day. It was pencil and paper. Again, she was scripty. I don't know what she would do to convert my notes, but regardless, she came back after her hiatus, and she told me, "This is what you do now. Your notes are great, blah, blah, blah." And then she's like, "This is what you do now." She straight up told me.
It's like...
And I'm like, cool. And she recommended Randy Feldman. And I had a bunch of money saved up from like those weeks of production that I wasn't used to.
Right.
So I'm like, sweet, I have the money. We just wrapped in November. Her workshop starts in January. I was like, I signed up.
Yeah.
Came down and took the class, and then I was a script supervisor. And that was my that was my connection into LA when I moved down, as I had the workshop. I had that little bit of community that Randy has, where she gets asked for like film school projects and early productions, and that's how I got my jump in. But I feel like it's a good personality fit. Like, I feel you have to be willing to support other filmmakers and it not be about you, and to have all that. And I spent a lot of time in Reno, almost like in a producer showrunner kind of way, where I wasn't producing to direct all my own stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I would hand off the baton to other people that wanted to be the reins. So I was kind of supporting creators for my whole time there. So I was like, sweet, this is the same thing. I'm supporting the director and helping them come out with the best piece that they can. So it was it feels really good being in that chair. I like it.
So.
But for like 5 years, I didn't know even that it existed.
Do you have a favorite position?
What do you mean?
Well.
Script supervisor. I'm just kidding.
Yeah?
So
do you prefer script supervising over writing or directing or producing or whatever is it?
So I'm a big fan of both. My top two is directing and script supervising. Okay. Of course, it's like different things in the brain get turned on depending on which chair I'm in. Of course, I can't be a script supervisor
When you're directing.
I can't go into director brain when I'm in the script supervisor chair, because then it's not helpful in any way.
Right.
And you're just giving notes to the director that are not notes. It's like, how about we try that? It's like, no, that's not. It's not the job. So
Very
I
true.
feel like what helps me is I make stuff currently as I'm pursuing the director side, kind of in my free time. That's what I call it. Getting it out of my system on the side helps me with my column as a script supervisor. If I was just solely doing script supervisor work, I'd probably get the itch a little bit, and I'd be very frustrated watching other directors do what I wanted to do. There'd be that resentment there.
Interesting.
But
I've never felt that way.
Which being
I've never directed, but a lot of people have the perception that script supervisor, or a lot of script supervisors use that knowledge to then step to the directing. Like, I have a lot of people like, so when are you going to start directing?
Really?
Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You know, not saying that I will never direct, who knows, but at this point in time, I'm a script supervisor. I love it. You know, I want to support your vision as director, and you know, I mean, of course, there's the occasional interesting choice moment where it's like, I think I would have done it differently, but I don't act on that or resent or anything. It's just how different creative people look at things. It's like, I interpreted the scene completely different, and that's the beauty, you know? But as script supervisor, it's your job to support the director in their vision, and I've never like resented or itched to kick them out of the chair and just be like, hey, my turn.
Yeah, I think I might have almost had that feeling once when I think I took a break from making my own stuff for a little bit, or I don't know what happened, but I feel for some reason I feel like I almost had that, and then I realized, I don't know, that as long as I'm whatever.
I love that you do so many different things. I'm actually very fascinated with your background and experience in so many departments. How do you, because you've edited, you've done pre-production stuff and producing, you've written, you've directed, I don't know, have you ever acted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you, what
yeah, I was gonna say, well, when I first jumped into film, I wanted to be an actor.
Oh, no way.
Because again, I was starting from I grew up in Reno. It's not a film town. I don't have any family in film. So I feel that when people think about getting involved in movies, they think about, there's the people I'm looking at on the screen. That looks fun. So that was kind of my very early jump in. That phase didn't last long because I didn't like it. And okay, I started producing my own stuff so that way I could act in front of the camera.
Okay.
But then I quickly learned that part's not fun. I actually enjoyed this other side of the camera more. But yeah, I have
so you have
experimented. Yeah, I've done
and
like
all
classes.
5 of the 5 big ones: acting, writing, directing, producing, and editing. I mean, there's the cinematography, but you've done that too. You've done camera stuff.
I've done camera stuff. That's the weakest of like. It's tough. Camera's hard.
So how do you?
And I've AD'd. I AD as well.
AD'd as well. Look at that.
Which is what we can talk about more, because I know you're jumping into the chair. Yeah.
How does your experience help you be a better script supervisor?
I feel like script supervisor to me, when I think about a director, let's say, if you're communicating with, as extensively as you are in the script supervisor thing too, directors and script supervisors and ADs, like the big, I call us the big department heads. It's like we're talking to everybody. It helps establish the connection with people more when you really know what's going on in their shoes.
Absolutely.
So if you could understand and feel where they're coming from, then it just makes you a better communicator. It makes you more empathetic to what they're having to deal with, and that being able to bond with them in that way of like,
I see what you're,
me and I bond with ADs all the time because I know I've been in their shoes and I know what they're going through, and I can be like their helping hand a little bit of like, you can talk to me about it. I understand.
But we're still gonna need another take.
Yeah, or even like, hey,
it's like I understand we're behind, but we're still gonna need.
Because I could even have those AD conversations about asking about what the schedule is like and how we're gonna fit this and this. Because I'm thinking about script supervisor stuff, and I can kind of bounce ideas off of them. And I don't know.
Do you do that on the day or in advance?
No, it could be like on the day, like just feeling out the mood, and I know they're stressed, so it can kind of be like it's like, oh, there's somebody else that's seen it too, can often
that's cool,
be a benefit. And then I don't know, actors as well. Yeah.
I see how that could be a huge, relief in one way and a way to bond with the AD, kind of, because I love my ADs, but sometimes there are moments where I'm like, I have not AD'd yet. So all of the different things that they're considering and thinking of, and we as script supervisors think about a lot of things at the same time, but the AD has a very different pressure and the same, if not more, things to consider on a time schedule.
Yeah.
So the pressure is a lot different, in my opinion. So there have been moments where it's like, okay, what's the big? But we need this. It's like, we don't have time. Stop talking. It's like, I know we don't have it. We gotta move on.
Yeah.
It's like either we work what we have, we work with what we have, or we won't get a scene. Yeah. And those are definitely things that the AD, the director, and the script supervisor need to be on the same page on.
Yeah.
Communicate.
Because I've I haven't really AD'd much as of late, but I always would equate it to the AD and the script supervisor, kind of like what you kind of said, it is the same information is being broken down in pre-production. We're both working with all the same stuff. We both need to know every single thing that's happening. It's just you filter into in a different way, or it's time, but we still understand the concepts, like you talked about it with episodic, and it's like we have this location, we gotta knock out all these scenes back to back. We understand how it works.
Yeah.
And we can put that schedule together if we needed to.
I don't know. I've never focused on how long it takes to send someone through hair and makeup. When it takes how long? Because I'm not there. I'm not on that side. How long because usually when actors go through that, we're working on something else. So my focus, my attention is 100% on what's happening here. And I don't know what's happening in the other rooms. I don't necessarily know how long it takes the G&E team to light things, because what we're shooting is already lit.
Yeah, you're not there while they're setting it up or whatever.
I'm not there. I'm not timing it. I'm not focused on how long it necessarily takes to swap a lens, because I'm catching up on notes or talking to the director about what just happened or what we're gonna do, or hey, we missed this this line in that close up, or we missed it in the wide, but we can get it in the close up. Or do you like however we got it? You know, those conversations are happening in my world. So on the one hand, yeah, we all have, I know that's happening, but I've never, putting together a schedule
Yeah,
and thinking about, well, how long does it actually take for other people to do the job that I see being done in the background, and then focus on when it's done. And I think that's the big challenge for me right now. I've been asked to assistant direct a good friend of mine on their short. So I'm excited, but it's definitely
it's
a different approach to.
So how many pages and how many days?
Well, I still need to put together the schedule.
Sure.
We are hoping to get 15 scenes, 5.5 pages in 2 days.
5.5 pages, but 15 scenes.
15 scenes. Yeah, we just omitted one scene, so it's back to 15. But it was 16 as of last night, and now it's back to it's 15. And luckily, the director is really good at, working with me in terms of simplifying. But it's all happening in one apartment. So, but the cinematographer already mentioned, there's specific light through the windows, and it's a very, very, very non-budget short. So we are hoping to work with natural light as much as we can. And it's like, if we're moving from here, from the kitchen to the living room, to the kitchen to the living room, in 1/8, that's a lot of action and performance and blocking for a really short scene. And those are the things that I am looking at right now, and working with my director, who's been fabulous at, being able to say, no, we don't really need this action, which would lead us to another room. We could just keep it all here and figure it out. But yes, 15 scenes, 5.5 pages, and in 2 days, with winter lighting in an apartment.
The good news is that it's all in the apartment.
That is true.
And I'm assuming limited cast.
One
person.
One lead. There are some background, and there's a supporting actor, but only for one scene.
Okay.
The majority of the scenes are single cast, but we're also a crew of 5.
Sure. Hey, that's plenty.
Is it? I don't think I've ever worked with a crew smaller than 30.
You meant, okay, I've shot, let's say, there's parts of my feature film that we shot with a 2-person crew.
Of a feature? Okay, what were those days, and who were the,
maybe
2?
three crew.
Okay.
It could be 2, where I am directing, and I'm ADing, and I'm doing sound. And then
what?
And then depends on what the objective of the project is how I see it too.
How so?
If the point is we want to get this thing done, you make sacrifices on whatever. Like if the objective is like if the dream, if it's a passion project and you're really passionate about it, sometimes it's like, yeah, well, I mean, this is what we got, let's make it work.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, well, what we need to do, we need such and such in place, and we can't do it unless we have all this, then so be it. You must wait. But sometimes it's possible with less. So, what's the objective of this piece? Besides the one your friend asked, you're coming into AD. What's the objective?
So this For me or for the project?
For the project,
For the
yeah.
project.
Where's it? Are there
So
high
this-
expectations for this thing, or?
I think so. It's my friend's. My friend wrote it. They will be directing it. It's one of the debuts for their new production company that they just put together. And with this one, there's one more short that is kind of supposed to be the start, the film festival lead-in, or however you want to say it. So I do think that we're trying to make a beautiful story happen and visualize it best as possible with the means that we have.
I like it.
Yeah, it's definitely not let's just rush through this, but this is a personal piece.
It definitely sounds. It definitely sounds like it's teetering on that line, because there could be pressure with this is the first thing you're seeing with this big dream of this production company,
Right.
and we want to start off on the right foot.
Right. Exactly.
And not let people be like, ooh.
Exactly.
Ugh.
So I do think, like, for me, I'm trying to do my very best. Because the creator is one of my dearest friends. And yeah, I just want to see their vision come to fruition. And, it's also the first time that I'm really just working with a friend that I haven't met through film. So there's a difference between meeting in a professional setting and then becoming friends versus meeting as roommates, then no longer being roommates but best friends and really close, to then start having a work relationship with. So there's that aspect of it too. Especially as an AD, I feel like you often have to push and hit some buttons and kind of like, I know you're not happy, but it's either this or that, kind of finding that balance. And the pressure that I'm putting on myself is probably way higher than the pressure that my friend is putting on me. But I want to make this, I want to do a great job for their sake.
You want to put the production in a good place to where it could succeed, and ride that balance between rushing and giving enough time.
It's like making exactly, like rushing, making that time, having a schedule that is tight but not set up for failure, kind of a deal. So there's just a whole bunch of stuff where I'm like, this is a new challenge for me, and there's not a lot of time for me to play with it. So
Yeah, but I feel like coming from the script supervisor background already, it feels like you're a great communicator.
Yeah.
So having those basics will only play well as an AD, where you're not assuming how much time it'll take. You're like, hey guys, I really don't know. Let's have this conversation. Right. How long do you need?
Right.
Perfect. And then it's just, that's all it is clarifying, communicating, and then freaking out because it's taking longer than they said.
Right, exactly. But the other thing is there are things that I'm used to on a larger budget or a bigger project where if you tell me that we only need to schedule 5 to 10 minutes for costume change as well as hair and makeup, to me it's like, is that really realistic? I know we only have one person, but if we're jumping in between continuity brain you know, it's like, even though the changes are minimal, we'll still have to be able to see the changes, the progression of, you know, this person going from being collected to falling apart over the course of 6 story days. So there are just a lot of factors that I'm trying to put together. But, you know, for what it's worth, my friend already said everything that I've done so far has been incredibly helpful, and
Sure.
I've caught a lot of things and helped simplify where it didn't affect the story. So I'm not completely
No,
you know,
I'm sure you're doing
being a script
great.
supervisor and having that mentality in my experience on set has definitely already helped. It's just putting together the schedule and really nailing those timings and estimating and having a sense of that's the one thing that I'm really,
You feel a little floaty on. You're like,
yeah,
there's some uncertainty there.
there's some uncertainty, and it's also, I don't want to, yeah, there's some uncertainty. There's just, how am I going to go about it without over calculating and saying this isn't possible in 2 days, or saying, no, we're going to do this in 2 days, but then not having the 2 days, like not finishing in the time that we need. But then, since I said we could do it, all the equipment will leave after those 2 days versus, you know, it's
Yeah.
you know. So those are things where I'm like, how is this resting on my shoulders right now? How am I, you know?
That's the job.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
exactly.
So it's 2 days. Were you, one thing that I've been thinking about more lately, and I would like if more productions thought about it, is like shorter days was something that I've thought about. I've been on a couple of productions where they give the 10-hour day versus the 12-hour day, and I feel like a lot of the issue of breaking down the immune system and wearing you out is the longer shoot days. What did you guys decide on this short?
Well, we are planning on 12-hour days. And worried that that's not enough.
It's plenty.
Plenty? Yeah. We have driving, we have stunts, we have wounds, we have animals. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Let's take this back to the drawing board.
No, it's it's contained. But there are definitely things to me where it's like, what's the camera and car? Do we need lighting? What does the, you know, and as you mentioned, I may be a little spoiled because I never actually worked on no budget stuff because I'm a script supervisor. So, and I started my career as script supervisor. So I took Randy's class, and then the next day I was on set as script supervisor. Which also means that they had the budget to hire a script supervisor.
Right.
I've never been a 2-person crew or a 5-person crew because usually you don't have a script supervisor if you don't have the means to have a fully fleshed crew.
Correct.
Which you should, because script supervisors are very important even on small things.
Yeah, it was cool. I was on a shoot recently. There was no AD. It was a very small production, but they brought out a script supervisor for it. So like, good on you.
That's amazing.
For seeing the necessity of the position, even though you strip down everywhere else. Like
that is amazing, and it's going to help them. It's going to benefit them in the long run, because especially when you have minimal crew, there's so many things that can get lost in the cracks that will jar the edit. But I do think, back to your thought about shorter days, 10-hour days are amazing. I jump on shows that say that they're having 10-hour days. The one thing that I do recognize is that it's a money factor. If it's a longer shoot, I think 10 days, like 10 hours, should be the standard, because those are the days, those are the shoots where it will really wear you out. Even the director gets worn out. I've had situations where, like, I can't tell you any notes. I don't have any notes. I'm just trying to. It's like
by the
they're
end of the
so
show,
burnt out by the end of the show. By the after 10 hours, like there just comes a time where it's overload, like creatively, mentally, physically exhausted. But if it's a short or like a quick project here and there, I can see that adding the overtime of 2 hours and just paying that versus adding a full day of equipment and
Right.
labor and everything. I think that's doable if it's a short project.
Because it's equating it to a sprint versus a marathon.
Exactly.
And okay, we can sprint over 2 days.
Right.
But sprinting over 20 days,
That'll
you ain't gonna
burn you
make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I could see that.
And then it's up to you as a freelancer to decide how many sprints you can pull off in a week or in a month.
Yeah.
Which is the hard thing too.
Because that's kind of my line as a general filmmaker as well when I do my own stuff or whatever. I usually try to do like 6 or 8 hour days even.
Wow.
But I think about, because I hear, I don't know if it's a braggy thing or if you've been a part of many of these productions, but going into the 14 to 16 to 18 hour days. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, that doesn't work. What? But it's kind of like an expected thing sometimes. I don't know if it's a script supervisor luxury that we don't get involved in those shows, or if they don't have script soups, or if it's a world that I'm just not involved in yet.
I hear a lot of music videos doing that. So where I hear that happening a lot is camera or sound saying, I worked on a music video, and they just pulled 36 hours nonstop. And I'm like, and you stayed? It's like, why? I charge overtime. So they don't usually keep me there over 12 hours. You know, there's always the wrap out after, but I haven't been on a lot of shoots where they kept me. I was on one short film where we went 16 hours and I was done. I was like, I don't want to do this. This isn't the kind of workflow or production company that I want to be associated with and work with. So I haven't worked with them since. You know, it was a short project. It was a very fun project. Great people to work with, but it is, you know,
the environment.
It was a great environment. It was just that something along the scheduling didn't go as planned, or they knew that this was going to happen from the start and didn't tell anybody, or whatever it was. Something wasn't right, and my time is worth more to me than your project.
That's the scary part, right? Is thinking about. I don't like the. I don't know if it's a producer mindset or where, but it's the money thing again, where it's always scary to me when when one can think about, oh, we can just throw money at the problem. It's like, we don't have to communicate, we don't have to do anything, we'll go into overtime, they'll charge overtime, so what, we'll pay them for it, we have the money, we're paying them already less than we could, so we've kind of budgeted this in. And so it's kind of like we can own them and they'll put the 16 hours in, and they can't complain because we're paying them.
And it's funny that you use that term. We own them.
Mm-hmm.
I've recently had an experience where someone on the crew overheard the executive producers talk to the producer who was fighting for the crew, said, I don't care. We own them. It's our, like, they're on our time. We're paying them, right? So we own them. No, you don't own people who work for you. Like, they can always leave.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's the thing, you know. It's such a hard thing to do, but knowing that if you're going over 12 and you're not getting paid for overtime, or you don't like the conditions, or whatever it may be, I know people who just say, great, it's 12 hours, let's go. And they will stand up and walk out. And it's like, you can keep shooting, but my time is up.
Mm-hmm.
I do not have personally, I have not had the
cojones.
The guts, the cojones, the chutzpah, call it what you want. I have not had that power in myself. Like, I couldn't find it. I was like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore. Well,
Yeah.
It's the 14th hour. You don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Or, even if it's 5 minutes after, you don't necessarily have to give them grace or have to give them extra time, even if they are paying overtime. You'll burn a lot of bridges, and you'll...
Yeah, so there's always that weird, weighing the options and having those nonverbal eyeballs that everybody's like, all right, are we doing this? What's going on? Are you... I guess we're... All right, half an hour. Like, what are we...
And I feel like that's also a benefit that crews with more people in them, so the camera crew or the G&E crew, they have more backbone to do that, because if they're not there,
you can't shoot.
Nothing's running.
Yeah.
But
they have a lot of leverage.
They have a lot of leverage. They also can, back each other up and discuss. And I feel like as script supervisor, we're only generally one person on set.
The department of one.
The department of one. And we're kind of in between all of the different departments because we're that hub position. So it's like, am I going to stab my director in the back by leaving because production isn't doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Or, are we actually leaving, or was that just a rumor? So there's a lot less involvement in those discussions if you're a department head of one. I noticed that on a feature that I was recently working on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everyone was whispering with their own department. I'm like, well, technically not in your department, and I'm technically not in your department. And then when I walk over here, you stop whispering because I'm not in your department, because it's really hard to gauge where the script supervisor fits in. And,
how do you...
in crew versus production.
On a normal day-to-day, how do you handle the potential isolationist department of one thing on set? How has that evolved for you from making the realization to coming to terms with it, or whatever that question leads to? I don't know.
I don't think I quite understand your question. Is it in terms of
so being that we don't have our own
who you sit with at lunch?
Yeah, we don't have our own built-in camaraderie from the get-go. It's like, all right, on this show, my best friend going to be the makeup artist, my best friend going to be the AD. Like,
right.
There's not this built-in thing that we can kind of rely on, I feel like.
I personally have found that
So yeah, lunch.
Right? To me, it's kind of like, who do you sit with at lunch? I try to switch it up if it's a longer project, but I tend to befriend sound and camera because those are the people that I interact with most on the crew level. And the director is usually sitting, I hardly ever have lunch with my director because they're always kind of...
They're busy.
They're like a magnet. It's like they never have a moment to just sit and unwind because even during lunch they're talking and thinking about work, and sometimes I just don't want to.
Yeah. I feel like directors, it's either one or the other, or it's either they're surrounded or they like to, it's like...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I tend to gravitate towards sound and camera and DIT because we're usually in that same video village, bubble, and those are the people that I rely on a little bit more in regards to technical, being digital and needing, hey, can I plug in my VNC myself, or do you want to do it, or here and there, and asking for context from sound. You just have that. For me, that's always really been my go-to.
I guess one thing let's say the holiday season. I get kind of jealous of all right, the camera team has their, they work with each other all the time. They have the cool gift exchanges. They're celebrating each other, and then the production side, the PAs are always working with the ADs and the second AD. They've got this, the departments do their cool things with each other, and I'm just like,
me.
Wait.
Yeah. I often get really sad when people order Starbucks.
Oh yeah, that happens all the time.
All the time, and somehow it
skips you.
They never think about. It's like everyone around me is included in the same Starbucks order, and it's like, oh wait, didn't think about you. It's like, but I'm right here. I know I'm not technically your department. I can pay you back. But especially with camera and the AD department, PAs and stuff, I sit there and I'm like, but I like coffee. Well, I don't like coffee, but I like,
I like the thought.
I like the thought. And
I just want to be able to say I just want to say I don't want any.
Well, there's other stuff than coffee.
No, for sure. But that happened, yeah.
But for wrap gifts, I shot a 2-month project in Montana, and at the end of it, everyone was not everyone, but the head of departments were giving out gifts for their team. And I'm like, oh, okay. But then, the AC pointed out that we are heads of department. So on the one hand, we're not getting anything. But on the other hand, we don't have to buy things. Because the DP dropped a lot of money on wrap gifts.
Well, yeah, I at the same, sure.
Sure.
I do like the idea of being able to treat your team. It seems nice. You're getting paid more than them. It's a little payback.
Yeah.
Well, not payback. Pay forward? I don't know what it is.
Appreciation.
Payback is a negative connotation.
Yeah, I guess.
Anyway, it's just a weird thing.
Yeah. Department head of one has its pros and its cons.
Yeah, I guess to get back to the foundation of script supervising, I'm a big fan of the constant communication, the excuses to communicate. I love being able to walk around everywhere and be included in everything. But then I don't like the flip side of that, where when it comes down to it, I walk out on my first day of lunch and I'm just like, wait, me and the second AC, we're besties. Why are you sitting with them? I want to sit with you, or whatever. And it's like, oh, you're actually with...
Yeah.
Okay, well...
That was... On the job that I just did, the 2-month job, the DIT was well sought out. He was such a cool guy, and so sound DIT and I would drive to set together every morning. But technically he's part of the camera team. So camera and sound and script would always fight over, who are you sitting with today? Like, it's like, but you're our friend, and now you want to hang out with them. But tables aren't big enough, especially during COVID, to all just have a communal table.
Crowd over the DIT. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's like those departments of one, although technically he's in camera.
But I guess, I don't know, I'll equate it to COVID times where it is very powerful to be okay with the isolation. And I guess that might be a thing that script supervisors, I don't know, I haven't really talked to it much about with other script supervisors. I guess that's why I ask you, but like, let's say again, going out at lunch, you sit by yourself, and this being able to be okay with it, like, oh, I'm just, I'm doing my thing, I'm having my lunch, I can have my book, or like whatever the case may be, and just being like, this is how it is, and I'm happy with it.
And I never do that. I can't do that.
Really? You can't?
Really? No. No.
I do it.
I always ask if I can sit, even if it's meeting people, because as script supervisor, we need to know, I like to know the other departments. Even if I don't know my hair team or my makeup team or my costume team because we haven't met yet, or, you've been juggling getting them ready before sending them to set, and you're not really there for me to build a rapport. I like to do that during lunch. I like to try and reach out and say, hey, I'm the script supervisor, can I sit with you? And if it didn't flow or whatever, then I move to the next table the next lunch or whatever it is.
I like it.
And I'm also, I'm a very social person, so the COVID isolation was definitely not, I don't think script supervising helped me with being isolated myself. But it's an interesting perspective. So you find yourself just reading and
Because sometimes cassette could be pretty chaotic. There's a lot of noise happening around that you have to be aware of and listen in on and kind of catch what's going on, that it can get like overwhelming.
Yeah.
So then lunch for me, if I don't have that connection, I'm like, cool, I'm going to go sit in the sun, get some day, enjoy because you're inside a lot or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I'm going to get some sun, sit with my lunch over here, and really enjoy the silence, and then get back to work.
I like that too. Like I can see the benefit of that, and I think on certain days that would have been beneficial for me as well. And
then there's another thing I don't know that I do sometimes too, where it's like, all right, I'll go and do the sunbathing. And then some people actually want to hang out with me, and they'll come out and have a conversation. Yeah. I'm like, all right, sweet. Like, it's nice to be wanted. Like, you want to talk to me? Great. I don't have to seek you out.
I have that on longer projects where I start out sitting and talking and being as social as I can, because oftentimes in my first couple of years, I was so focused on the job that I didn't really make a lot of connections. I didn't really know who I was working with, or, I couldn't have told you, I mean, if it was short days, probably not even the names of everyone. So I was so involved in just getting everything and making sure everything is perfect and just communicating where I had to versus actually socializing and getting to know a person on another level than just, hey, the hair wasn't right, or did you forget the ring, or and you phrase it nicely, and but basically oftentimes as we've established in our conversation, the script supervisor doesn't necessarily speak up unless there's something that needs to be addressed and fixed. So one of the stereotypical things is the script supervisor is always nagging or like always criticizing. It's like when I walk up, a lot of times people go, "What now? Like, what happened? What did I do wrong?" I'm like, "Nothing. I just had a second and wanted to say hi." It's like, you're socializing. I just wanted to be a part of it.
It's a reaction from directors a lot for sure. They get like, it's like, no, I'm just here to, great job, everybody.
Right, exactly. I get that reaction. And sometimes I'm like, wait, is it something that I do? But it's the job. It really is. Like, you have to balance bringing up things that weren't perfect and that need to be adjusted or might benefit from being adjusted in a positive, constructive, cheerleader way without being over the top. It's a really fun balance, right?
Yeah, yeah.
How do you deal with that balance, and like how do you perceive it?
Oh, it's for me, I always come from the perspective of this, like I kind of mentioned it before, like I'm just here to say my thing. This is my perspective on this thing, and I'm saying it because I care about the project, and I want this to be good, and I feel like this is something worth bringing up. I'm being very specific about this moment. I'm saying it for a specific reason. What do y'all think about it?
Fair.
Yeah. So coming from the productive, I'm here for the benefit of the project. It's nothing personal to anybody.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Do you ever bring up if it's not essential for the cut, but it would strongly benefit the flow, do you bring that up?
Do you have an example? For me, it's I can let you think about it.
I don't have an example off the top of my head. It's more.
So
we could cut around it, I'm sure, but
it all depends on what the priority of the moment is. Of course, you have to balance out. If the shoot was going very smoothly, and dialogue is being hit, and the actors are doing a great job of being consistent with their actions, you're like, okay, sweet. Now I can bring up this minuscule thing that normally I'd have to bring up the matching action, or I have to give notes on this. So you kind of prioritize, all right, good. All right, now, being that we have a long streak of being good, I feel like this is something I could bring up, and it's not going to be... Because if stuff is going wrong with dialogue and matching action and stuff is messing around, then saying something, it's like, all right, let's focus...
Let's focus on the important stuff. Yeah, no, absolutely. I like how you phrase that.
Thank you. How did you get involved in script supervising? What brings you here? And then we'll jump into how others can follow suit.
Okay.
And then LASSN.
So I kind of snowballed into it. I studied psychology in the Netherlands and loved the topics, but I couldn't see myself as a psychologist. Like, I tried looking into because there are so many jobs out there as a psychologist, but everyone had like a big no for me personally. And my dad asked me what I wanted to do, so I was like, all right, well, I like to think about film stuff and talk about film stuff, but I was definitely in the wrong crowd. I watched a movie with my cousin, Prisoners. With Jake Gyllenhaal and
Tobey Maguire's?
No. Wolverine.
Hugh Jackman?
Yes.
Okay. I think I've seen that one.
I was absolutely blown away by it when I saw it in theaters. Like, I wanted to dissect it. Like, what are the hidden triggers? What is, like, the tone of voice? What are the colors? What is, each sentence had some things like, is he actually going to do this? Or, like, I just had a lot of underlying things that I interpreted into it at the time. This was, like, a while ago.
Sure.
And my cousin looked at me and said, Sarah, we just watched a movie for 2 hours. It was good. Let's be done with it. So I realized that I was clearly in the wrong space, in the wrong environment for what I was passionate about. And when my dad asked me what I wanted to do, I was like, well, I want to work in film. Well, that's not a job. I'm like, or is it? Because I didn't really grow up in a town that had a lot of film opportunities or, influence. It was a small town in Germany, and and then.
Sounds like Reno. I'm just kidding.
But so I just packed up my things and moved to California to work in the film industry without really knowing what I wanted to do. I was originally gonna go to school for it, go to, like, establish residency, go to school, and then find my way the more or less traditional route of building your, like, working your way up and finding your spot in the industry. But I was really lucky because the one person that I knew in LA was a very brief acquaintance that I made at the film festival in Venice, Italy. She lives in LA, and she was willing to meet up with me, and we had dinner. We watched Nebraska and saw the Q&A afterwards and talked about it. And she's in casting, and she just kind of was blown away by how I talked about the movie and what things I really liked and what stood out to me. And apparently those were script supervisor focused things to her. She was like, oh, interesting, like, you're really detail oriented. You liked the whole line through the whole movie and, like, seeing how this tiny little thing, I think one of the things I mentioned was his walk. And how I loved that in the Q&A, he said that he had a pebble in his shoe so that he would constantly remember to limp on that one leg. Those little things, I think that's so cool. And I was interested and intrigued. And she suggested script supervising. And I had never heard of script supervising. I was like, in my head, I was like, what the?
Sure. You can say it. It's cool.
I was like, what the fuck is script supervising? And she kind of explained the basics. And I went home, went online, tried to find something about script supervising. There's really not much out there online if you first look. But I found Randy Feltman's cinema workshop classes, and they were happening that Friday. And it was Tuesday or something. I called my dad, who's my go-to, mentor when it comes to anything. I'm like, hey, Dad, so this is my thought. I could wait, do it in 3 months. And he said, no, just go for it. Like, you have the money saved up. You just moved to LA. You want to learn about film stuff. Who knows what's going to be in for 3-4 months. And then I called. I didn't even look up where it was happening. I just called. Said, hey, I know it's only 7 people in your class, and it's happening in 3 days, but is there any chance there's a seat available? And someone had canceled. And she's like, yeah, someone just canceled, so there's 1 spot. Why don't you join us? And after the fact,
it's heartwarming so far.
I know, it was like after the fact of, like, figuring out the fact that I had a spot, and I kind of already paid her and everything. And then I looked at the address and I was like, well, I don't have a car. So I was getting a little nervous, but it was in walking distance from my apartment.
Oh, whoa.
So everything just kind of lined up. I had been in LA. for 10 days, I had one acquaintance who linked me with the field that I had never heard of. I randomly found this class that randomly started 3 days from now, that randomly had one seat available, and that happened to be in walking distance from my apartment. And it just kind of snowballed, and I took the classes, and I got my first interview the day after I graduated, and I was on set the next day. Mm-hmm. And I never went to film school. That just didn't happen anymore. And now it's like, well, do I really want to?
No, for sure. Very cool.
So it's wow. Completely random, but it works. I still don't know how the universe put all of that together. How everything just fell into place so perfectly.
How was it feeling as you're going through that? Did it feel like, oh my gosh, it almost feels like a freak out at every step of the way. It's like, what am I going to do? I guess I'll have lunch. I guess I'll look into it. I guess I'll sign up for the class. I guess it's right. I don't know how that.
I wasn't really freaking out. I was just, it blew me away that everything was just, and I think at the time it was like, yeah, I've set my mind to it, so
it's gonna work out one way
or another, and I'm gonna figure something out. But looking back at it and realizing that every single step it just feels like that was the right path for me at the time. There was cool. No obstacle.
Yeah,
it was like bam, 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 boom, on set. Great.
I'm sure a lot of people are kind of jealous of that story. It sounds very nice.
It's been very nice. And then, the other thing is my very first job was a USC thesis film for 10 days. Mm-hmm. So, as you said, I'm a little spoiled. I've never actually done any of those. We have a passion project and are scrambling to find the funds and are, making that all work, which is great and I'm really grateful for.
For sure.
But it also has, sometimes I wish I had more of a variety of experiences, if that makes sense. Like, I look at your resume and it's like, I've done this and I've done that and I have experience as this position, that, and like all of those factors are extremely beneficial to being a creative filmmaker and merging into script supervision from there. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's like I'm a script supervisor, and I love being a script supervisor, and I've been told that I'm good at being a script supervisor, but I never thought I would be a script supervisor.
Yeah.
And I've never tried anything else. And every time I reached out to friend filmmakers, I'm like, hey, if you need an assistant for art department, or if you need an assistant for camera, or if you need an assistant for production, let me know. I'd love to gain experience. And they look at me like, you're a head of a department. Why?
Yeah.
Why would you want to go back 10 steps?
Yeah.
I'm like, because I'm not getting the experience.
I just want to see what it's like.
Right. So I love it, and I'm very, very grateful. But there's always that edge. It's like, but if I hadn't, I would have gone through film school and, probably struggled. I would have way more debt than I have.
Don't do film school.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I'm ever going to. But there are definitely things that I would love to learn. And that's why I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be an AD now. Because while it's stressing me out now, it's putting me in a different mindset and trying to use my established script supervising skills and experience on set
Mm-hmm.
into a different perspective. And it's working out.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. It's a very odd, coincidental way of getting to where I am.
And it is nice, because I the department of one thing. All right, when people say, "Why would you want to move back?" You're like already there. You're so high up on the I don't know.
Right.
I sometimes get confused with that too. I'm like, wait, am I? I guess so.
Yeah.
Because I think I've heard that as well, where it's like, yeah, look, you're in discussions with all of the big creatives, so
Yeah. We are a department head.
Yeah.
As script supervisor, like, we are in immediate contact. We have the privilege. Someone recently said, "You have the privilege of speaking to the director whenever you want." I'm like, I never thought about that before.
That's cool.
I guess, as script supervisor, we are next to the director, talking to the director, listening in on what the DP and the director have to say. We are in immediate contact with the person who's running the show, our dear AD,
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to deal with the trickle-down effect of, like, waiting for the information to get to everybody, because we are generally right there, listening to it firsthand, straight out of the horse's mouth. It's like...
Yeah, or even a part of the solution process.
Exactly.
Where you're a bounce board or...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So...
appreciation moments right there.
So it's definitely... And we're also in immediate contact with the producers on a level that is problem solving, and yeah, it's a great position to be in.
So I guess, with that being said, what's your recommendation? I don't know how often you're asked from people on set or otherwise, but hey, how can I, do what you do, or jump into script supervising myself?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, I don't know, people might try to shortcut it on straight up just trying to jump on set as a script supervisor versus Randy's workshop, which, I don't know, you probably took the full A and B.
Yeah.
I forget how.
So I took my classes in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And back then she changed her coursework a little bit. There was the beginner, which I think now is A, and then the advanced, which is now B, and I think now it's kind of required to do both, right? Anyway, it used to be optional, and I did both, and I'm super grateful that I did, because in the second one you learned about the 180-degree line, the eye lines, and blocking, and all of those tricks that she has up her sleeve, which was something that I immediately needed on my first day of set ever. Like, I had just set foot on set, and they asked me, "Does the eye line match?" And I was like, whew. I'm glad I have some kind of sense of that. I was looking through my notes, but I wasn't immediate. I didn't have the immediate answer. I had to, like, look at what I wrote down. And the AD goes, "That's part of your job." So I was like, yes, I do. And I know the answer, but I wouldn't have if it had been, if I hadn't learned it in the class.
Yeah, because I was reflecting on it recently in terms of, I did A and B as well, and I think it was like 4 days a week or something like that, 6 hours a day or something crazy. So when you add it all up, it's like over 100 hours of specific script supervisor instruction, which is a lot of time.
I also took the special commercial class where we had a guest speaker come in, and the VFX class.
Yeah.
So those were additional ones as well. I think overall, it took 6 weeks. for me to complete all of those. And it's worth it. Whether you take Randy's class, which I can highly recommend,
Same.
or you take other script supervisors' classes there.
I can't vouch for that.
No, but Don Gilliam also has a online class that I'm actually considering taking, just because she's one of the main, the biggest union script supervisors.
I think I saw a photo I just visited the Los Angeles Script Supervisor Network website before you showed up, and there's a picture of her. The first photo is her with J.J. Abrams, I believe. Is that correct?
Possible.
Okay.
I don't know which one the first picture is. But yeah, she's definitely on there.
So I'm like, oh my gosh, I forget that even those big directors have script supervisors.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she's huge. And she's really doing a lot for the craft and for the future of it, and trying to pay it forward. Trying to make sure that people don't just step onto set claiming they're script supervisor without knowing what they're doing. Because I think that hurts our craft and that hurts our reputation as script supervisors. Obviously there will always be a range of skill, and you'll start somewhere. But if you claim to be a script supervisor on set, have at least book knowledge, read the Pat Miller book, find other books about script supervising, about the basics of editing, so that you have an understanding of why you need to focus on the 180-degree line, why, eye lines are important. There's the 5C book.
Yeah.
I forgot what the 5 C's stand for, but that was a book that was definitely eye-opening to me in regards to script supervisor and camera, just general knowledge on that, and knowing why, when, what the angles represent. Do your homework, learn, hit up a script supervisor who knows what they're doing, ask for a crash course. There are ways to get into it, even if it's joining a script supervisor network group on Facebook, whichever one it is. There are multiple out there, where you can ask questions, where you can get in touch with script supervisors who know the craft and who, if they have time, can and are willing and feel like they can teach, to sit down and give you a crash course. You can accept the job, but don't go to set as script supervisor without knowing anything about script supervising. I've heard, since we're a department of one, you don't have anyone who is accountable for you. You're accountable for yourself, but also you don't have anyone to show you the ropes. So once you're there, you don't have the answers, or you're doing a poor job, it puts everyone in the craft kind of in a poor light. It's you don't need a script supervisor. They're not helpful. They don't have the answers, Yeah, so.
or their notes weren't used at all,
Exactly.
or whatever.
It's how many times have you heard, it's cute that you're putting effort into your notes. Nobody's ever going to look at them.
I haven't heard that too often,
No?
Thankfully. That would hurt.
I get that a lot, or I have gotten that a lot, especially at the beginning. It's you work too hard. Nobody looks at your notes anyway.
That's mean.
It's so mean, and it's so untrue, because good script notes are noticed. But a lot of editors also have told me that they were actually surprised
to get good notes.
Because, I've gotten a phone call from an editor asking me something that I know I wrote in the notes. I'm well, did you look at my notes? Oh, I mean, yes, but I could still use your help looking at it. I'm So you, okay, I don't understand the question because it's right there. I'm looking at them. It's highlighted in red. If you look at that scene, you'll see it.
Yeah, you'll get your answer.
And then they looked at it while we were on the phone. They're like, okay, I actually didn't really read your notes because I'm not used to getting information. That is like, and that's crippling to our craft.
Yeah.
Crippling.
No, for sure. I don't.
That's the reason why you hire a script supervisor.
That's the. Yes. I don't know. Okay, from my perspective again, being that I did explored a bunch of other routes before jumping in, it is very interesting. I'm curious to how, like, one gets the insight into what notes are important. Sometimes too, like with the editor, like I edited my own feature. Like I've gone through like 6 months of just solo editing and blah blah blah. I've edited most of my own projects, so I'm like, I understand action's important and all that kind of stuff, and more options in the edit is great, what the editor is probably looking for. So I think it's very cool that like you don't necessarily need the editing experience, but like you've read the books, you've done other forms of education, but it's just cool that there's multiple ways to get to the same to get to the same thing.
But yes, 100%. I love that through Randy's class, through reading and watching movies and kind of, one of the coolest things, I don't know, she probably did it in your class too. One of my favorite educational moments, I have two favorite educational moments of the cinema workshop classes. The first one, we had Randy had access to different takes and like different dailies of an old movie, and we watched it, and there was a continuity error, and she asked us like, all right, so these have already been shot, how can we fix it? Like if we find that there isn't, like in this shot she's walking camera right to left, and then on the other side she's walking camera left to right, but it's supposed to match or whatever. How can we solve the problem if we have another shot in between? It's like, well, tailway or leading or however to break the direction. Or cutaways, how important it is to have cutaways, even if it's like, oh, she was carrying it in her right hand and then she carried it with the left and nobody noticed in time. So now we need something to
merge,
to break the continuity, like the focus. So what do? Well, cutaway. How about we show what time it is? She's late for work. I don't, so little things like that I learned from Randy. I would not have thought of that because you don't if the final film was edited really well, you won't necessarily catch continuity errors if you have footage to help with that. So you won't necessarily on the first watch notice that she switched it from her right hand to the left hand because there was a script supervisor or a cinematographer or a director on set who knew, hey, there's got to be something. So I learned that from Randy, but I think that having editorial experience and actually being in the edit room and actually seeing our problem solving and sitting in front of this puzzle, trying to put it together, is something that I want to learn for myself. I want to sit in. Unfortunately, every time I've been offered to sit in, I got a job. So it hasn't worked out so far, but
it's a good problem to have, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. But I think it's wonderful that you have the experience and background and have created. And you say you wrote in order to direct, or you produced in order to act. And it's like you edit in order to get your project done.
Mm-hmm. Correct, yeah.
And that's absolutely spectacular in my world. It's like the fact that you do that, and it's like, well, I really want to gain this experience, so let me just do everything and figure it out. Mm-hmm. That's inspiring.
Yes, thank you.
That's very inspiring.
Very nice words. I appreciate it. So recap, we'll probably cycle out here. If you want to learn the craft, there's workshops available. Mm-hmm. You mentioned 2. There
are more out there.
There's plenty out there. I see them posted all the time in the script supervisor groups. I, of course, never have taken anything else besides Randy, so I can't vouch for those. But there are options.
But do your research. Ask around. Not everyone who's offering a class is necessarily a teacher or a good teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I have, unfortunately, heard from poor experiences as well, where someone wanted to learn and better themselves in their craft and their skill set, so they paid another script supervisor to educate them and were completely lost on set because they didn't actually retain the information in a way, or they didn't learn the information and they weren't told the information in a way that allowed them to retain it and apply it.
Yeah.
And there are so many facets to our job. I wouldn't know where to begin teaching this. So while I've learned the skill at this point in my career, like the thought of teaching it.
It's like everything you mentioned, it's a big, like, all right, let's dive down this for a while. Okay, right. We haven't even touched on this, and this, and this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But how deep do you dive from the start without overwhelming?
For sure.
How shallow can you have it to get an overview? Like, those are, and how like, what tools do you have available to really show, like, I don't have access to dailies. I couldn't tell someone's like, it's like, I only see the final product. So what I'm saying is look into it and ask for recommendations as well. Mm-hmm. Because while I'm sure that the script supervisors offering feel confident in their skill and are great script supervisors, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're great teachers.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, I don't know. Yes, you are correct on all of that.
I mean, I applaud anyone who is willing to take the time and educate the craft. That is super important. Don't mean to discourage that. And the more people who try and educate, the better their educational style might be, or become, if that makes sense. So I don't want to discourage people from being like, whoa, maybe I shouldn't teach. It's a weird balance. Mm-hmm. To start teaching, because there aren't enough script supervisors out there.
Yeah. So I would just throw out, you are a LASSN administrator.
Yes, I am. Los
Angeles Script Supervisor Network.
That is correct.
There's a website that was recently launched, lassn.org. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of cool resources here on really diving into what does a script supervisor do, nice and clear cut. So if you're a producer, or if you're a director, getting insight into what we're up to and how we could help you is very, very, very good. I think there's like entire breakdowns on how a script supervisor interacts with each department too. Like, what do those back and forths look like? So that's a lot of cool stuff there.
Yeah.
I think there might be a picture of me somewhere on this.
Nice.
I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It is a fairly recently updated website, but we're very proud of it.
And what's the what do they call it? Like not the objective, but the what's the what's the what's the objective of the group? What are like
So
it's education? What are we trying to do here?
LASSN, as you said, the Los Angeles Script Supervisor Network, is a group for script supervisors to network. Because we are a department of one, we put it together to as a bridge between non-union script supervisors as well as union script supervisors. On the one hand, so it is meant to be a means to connect script supervisors in Los Angeles across the board and experience level, building mentorship, learning, asking questions in a safe space, and therefore strengthening the craft overall. That's the one side of it. It's also meant, the website in particular, is meant to help reach out and allow for producers and other team members who don't necessarily understand why it's crucial or important or beneficial for the pre-production side of it, for the production side of it, and for the edit, to have a script supervisor on set. As we said at the very beginning, a lot of people come up to us and say, you have the most important job on set, but I have no idea why. I have no idea what you do. And this is meant to kind of clarify and open that educational, conversation of, here's what we do. Please feel free to reach out if you have questions. Ultimately, we're also hoping to use the website in order to kind of allow producers to reach out when they need script supervisors. We have a separate email link where script supervisors can sign up. I don't think that has been launched yet, but that is ultimately a goal that we have, so that when producers need a script supervisor, but their go-to script supervisor isn't available, but they don't know anybody else, well, who do you contact? You can, if you're a union, then there's the roster, and on LASSN there is a link to for producers to then get that information. We don't have access to the roster because it's union. It's sacred. But if you are a union producer, producing a union show, you can get the information that will lead you to the union, to get in touch with them. And if you're a non-union producer, then there will be a list of script supervisors. And if you email that, then they can react and respond and kind of
For sure.
find each other without having to jump through as many hoops. It's we're trying to open the doors and make it easier to access and understand our craft.
Very cool. I was going to ask maybe one more question.
Sure.
I don't know. What are you looking to make the jump to union anytime soon, or?
That question has been hovering over me for 4 years. Yes, ultimately, I am looking forward to joining the union. I think that there are tremendous benefits of being a union script supervisor, whether it be having the support in regards to overtime and rate, and producers going into 18, 16 hours. That doesn't really happen. I mean, it can happen, but it's not as frequent. You have backup, you have more stability. Pension's a huge thing. Like just having that community and educational factor, because the union also offers a lot of educational betterment for the craft and the people in the union. So those are things that I'm definitely interested in. I haven't made the jump because it was quite challenging to get past contract services.
Mm-hmm.
So especially, like, I haven't tried in 2 or 3 years now, but when I was,
Turning in your days and all that.
turning in my days and all that, I was eligible in my second year of script supervising. I've now script supervised for 7. I was eligible, I had all my days, everything was great, but after 2 years I was not confident enough to make the jump myself. Even though I had great experiences, I was doing a good job, I personally doubted my ability to swim with a big fish.
Mm-hmm.
And making that jump from the non-union world into the union world and succeeding as well as it had been going for me in the non-union world. And that was after all the struggles, and half of my days got cut because of, but like either the rate wasn't exactly right, or once I figured that out and got the right rate, then it was a web series and web series don't count, or whatever it was at the time.
Sure.
And then recently it's just kind of been similar. For me personally, the non-union world has been very fruitful. I've been getting a lot of work. I have repeat productions coming to me, repeat projects. I've been able to venture out and experience a lot of different angles of script supervising for the different projects. And I love the different approaches of the same job, if that makes sense. Which would be the same with script supervising in the union, but when I reached out to my union contacts, they were like, what do you mean you're doing motion capture? I've never done motion capture union. I mean, they're out there, but not as frequent, I guess.
Motion capture non-union or union?
Union.
Okay.
I mean, they definitely have union motion capture, but like the experience that I had was for a game, like gaming and being a part of interviews, and I don't know. It's just been very fruitful for me, so I haven't.
You haven't felt the pressure to make a jump because it's like everything's working. This is nice,
and I also haven't had the time.
And you're getting fulfilled. I'm sure. Like as long, I'm assuming once it's not fulfilling or whatever, it's like all right, I need to make a change. But it's kind of not the case.
Exactly. So it's fulfilling. I've been either working a lot or just needing a break. So
it's a win-win.
So dealing with contract services again and going through all the paperwork again, and I mean now most of my jobs are payroll, so it would be way easier. But I just haven't. My goal was to do it last year. Like in 2019, I said, all right, 2020 is the year that I'm going to join the union. And the first 3 months were so busy with work, and then everything just stopped. I'm like, well, I'm certainly glad that wasn't, like I didn't have all the financial starter costs of joining the union in 2020.
It's expensive.
It is expensive. But I am also, like, there is a motion coming from veteran script supervisors, union script supervisors, who've recently reached out to the LASSN members, admin team, to try and figure out why, like, why non-union script supervisors aren't joining, how we can lessen the gap between experience levels and try to educate non-union script supervisors in what the flow would be like on union sets without them actually being on union sets. Mm-hmm. So we're working on trying to.
I'm very interested in that.
Oh, me too. It's very fresh.
Yeah, because I know there was a survey that went out that I was a part of that I'm assuming went toward.
Yeah, I haven't seen, but we, like the LASSN admins were recently included through a video chat, and we're gonna look into working with the union veteran script supervisors, which just means they have 15 years of experience plus, because cool. You know we're trying to better the craft both in the non-union world as well as the transition to the union world, and try and help stand our ground even though we're not union, and unionize overall in the betterment of our craft. So I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to that collaboration because
that's cool.
It's just an exciting prospect, in the fact that people I look up to have reached out to communicate with us and try and work with us and collaborate and get our insight, and that's like just really, really exciting, and I'm honored, honestly, to be a part of it. Exciting stuff coming.
Cool. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. That's the end. Sarah Garrettson, thank you.
Thank you.
I feel, based on trying to search whatever, you're not big on social media.
What do you mean?
As far as like putting stuff out there and being social, are you? I mean, feel free to.
No, I'm really not.
All right.
I don't have.
Because normally this is the point to shout out your tags and your Instagram, and here's your website.
No, I'm very private.
Okay, great.
My Instagram is friends only. Facebook is where,
Sure.
If you want to find me on Facebook for work-related stuff, it's my name, Sarah Garrettson.
Sweet.
But
it's plenty fine. No worries.
Other than that, it's really a lot of word of mouth, knowing people in person, and connecting.
Yes, 100%.
For me, I looked at your website. I'm like, damn, I need to get one of those. But
thank you.
Yeah.
Great, but that's it. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye, guys.